You don't move to Hollywood. Hollywood moves around you. At first, it doesn't feel like power. It feels like access, a meeting invitation that wasn't supposed to reach you, a private dinner with producers whose names appear before every major film, a phone call from someone representing an agency bigger than entire media companies in other countries. Then another call, then introductions, then contracts, and eventually, without anyone officially saying it, you become part of the system that decides what the world watches. From the outside, Hollywood looks creative. It looks artistic. Directors, actors, red carpets, premieres, cameras. But once you are inside, you realize very quickly that the industry is structured less like art and more like capital allocation. Films are not simply made because someone has an idea. They are financed because someone calculates expected return. A $20 million film is a controlled investment. A $120 million film is a strategic corporate asset. A $250 million franchise film is not entertainment anymore. It becomes infrastructure. Your job begins where creativity ends. You control which projects receive financing, which scripts move into development, which actor gets attached, which director gets replaced, which release dates survive, which campaigns receive marketing support, which projects disappear before the public even knows they existed. And the numbers are larger than most people imagine. A single global theatrical release can require $150 million in production costs and another $100 million in worldwide marketing. That means before a single ticket is sold, $250 million is already exposed to risk. Then add streaming distribution, licensing, merchandise, brand partnerships, international syndication, music rights, back-end deals, consumer products. One decision around one film can move $500 million across the system, and eventually those decisions start reaching your desk. At first, it feels unreal. You sit inside private screening rooms watching unfinished cuts before anyone else in the world sees them. Your phone fills with names followed by agents, lawyers, executives, managers, studio presidents. Your schedule becomes a chain of strategy calls between Los Angeles, New York, London, and Tokyo. Everyone is selling confidence. Everyone says they know what audiences want. Everyone says the project will work. But the truth is simpler. Nobody knows. Hollywood is one of the most profitable industries in the world, built on prediction, while remaining fundamentally unpredictable. A film can test perfectly and fail. A project nobody believes in can generate $1 billion globally. A franchise can collapse in one weekend. A new actor can become worth $50 million in market value after one performance. And because of that uncertainty, control becomes more valuable than talent. That is where you enter. You are no longer trying to become famous. You are managing risk inside a machine powered by fame. The illusion is that you control Hollywood because your name is attached to the biggest projects in the world. The reality is more complicated. Because once billions begin moving through your decisions, the system stops serving creativity and starts demanding results. Once you control enough projects, you stop thinking in films. You start thinking in portfolios. Hollywood from the outside looks emotional and chaotic. Inside, it runs on structure. Every studio has its own version of it, but the mechanics stay nearly identical. Development teams search for ideas. Producers package those ideas with talent. Legal teams secure rights. Finance departments model performance projections. Distribution teams estimate territory sales. Marketing builds campaigns before the movie is even finished. And over all of it sits a small layer of people who decide what gets approved and what disappears. That layer now includes you. A major studio can review more than 500 concepts per year. Less than 10% move into formal development. Of those, maybe 20 reach pre-production. Only a fraction are actually released worldwide. Millions are spent before cameras ever turn on. Writers are paid to develop scripts that never get made. Directors are attached, removed, replaced. Entire productions collapse after months of preparation. Hollywood wastes enormous amounts of money trying to predict success before the audience speaks. And prediction is everything. A streaming platform might spend $80 million licensing one film before release based on projected subscriber growth. A theatrical studio may spend another $60 million marketing it globally. Merchandise partners invest before the first review exists. Theatre chains reserve screens months ahead. Brands attach sponsorship campaigns around actors and release dates. By opening weekend, hundreds of millions can be connected to a single title, which means your approval is never just creative approval, it becomes financial authorization. You begin every week inside conference rooms reviewing performance decks, domestic projections, international forecasts, audience testing scores, completion budgets, reshoot estimates, streaming retention curves, social sentiment analysis, trailer performance, brand value exposure. Every number attempts to answer one impossible question: will people care enough to watch? But numbers in Hollywood are dangerous because they look precise while hiding uncertainty. A film projected to earn $700 million may finish at $300 million. Another expected to break even may become a billion-dollar franchise. There is no formula that fully works. There are only probabilities, trends, momentum, and timing. That uncertainty is why power concentrates. Because when nobody can guarantee success, control shifts to whoever controls green-light decisions, capital, distribution, and access. And slowly you begin to understand something bigger. Actors may become the face, directors may become the vision, studios may become the brand. But the real system runs behind closed doors through leverage, relationships, financing, and approval. And now every version of that system runs through you. At first, the system changes your schedule. Then it changes your behavior. Eventually, it changes the way you see people. Your days stop looking normal. Morning begins with overnight box office reports from Asia and Europe. Before breakfast, you already know whether a release opened above forecast in South Korea, whether pre-sales in London are soft, whether a trailer underperformed across North America, and whether a lead actor's interview is trending for the right reasons or the wrong ones. By the time Los Angeles fully wakes up, your decisions are already affecting markets on the other side of the world. You adapt faster than expected. Private screenings become routine. Negotiations become normal. Red carpet events become work. You stop seeing celebrities the way audiences do. You no longer look at actors and think about fame. You look at them as financial assets attached to projected revenue. One actor can add $80 million in opening weekend demand. Another can reduce international licensing value by 20%. Public image becomes measurable. Reputation becomes part of valuation. That shift changes everything. Conversations that once sounded creative now sound operational. Scripts become investments. Release calendars become competitive positioning maps. Award campaigns become marketing strategy. Press becomes leverage. Interviews become risk management. And because the machine rewards outcomes, your lifestyle expands with it. You move into larger spaces, better neighborhoods, private memberships, screenings behind closed doors, flights booked through assistants, security teams at premieres, invitations to rooms the public never sees. Your name begins opening doors before you arrive. People return calls faster. Meetings wait for you instead of starting without you. Externally, it looks like success. Internally, it feels like acceleration. Because the better you perform, the more responsibility the system hands back to you. One successful franchise leads to another. A strong release quarter turns into a larger slate. More capital gets approved under your supervision. More talent wants meetings. More producers want financing. More executives want alignment. Suddenly, you are not managing one studio decision. You are managing dozens at once across film, streaming, licensing, and global partnerships. And the strange part is how quickly this becomes normal. You stop reacting to headlines. A movie crossing $500 million globally becomes expected. A $40 million reshoot becomes manageable. A public controversy becomes a scheduling problem. Billion-dollar conversations become calendar blocks between lunch and evening meetings. That's how Hollywood pulls people deeper, not through fame, through normalization of scale. And once scale feels normal, it becomes very difficult to imagine life outside of it. This is the point where control stops being optional, because now the system depends on you, and you depend on the system. At first, you thought power in Hollywood meant influence, the ability to approve projects, move budgets, shape careers, and control major releases. But influence is only the visible layer. Underneath it is dependency, and dependency is far stronger. Your studio is now connected to thousands of employees across development, legal, production, marketing, licensing, distribution, and corporate operations. A delayed decision from you can stall hundreds of contracts. A cancelled film can eliminate work for entire crews across multiple countries. A greenlit franchise can activate years of spending before a camera starts rolling. Entire business units begin moving around your calendar. And because so much capital is tied to momentum, stopping becomes expensive. A $180 million production already halfway through filming cannot simply pause because you changed your mind. Talent contracts continue, sets remain rented, insurance keeps running, visual effects houses continue billing weekly, studio space stays occupied, payroll keeps moving, every delay burns money, sometimes $500,000 per day, sometimes more. You begin to realize Hollywood is not built to slow down. It is built to keep consuming capital until release. And your own life begins following the same model. Your schedule becomes full years in advance. Your name is tied to upcoming franchises, streaming commitments, executive deals, licensing renewals, award campaigns, and expansion plans. Investors expect returns. Shareholders expect growth. Talent expects opportunity. Media expects visibility. Everyone assumes the machine continues because it always has. So you continue. Even when the projects feel weaker than they used to, even when the meetings multiply faster than the ideas, even when the numbers still look strong, but the creative energy underneath starts thinning. Dependency doesn't feel dangerous when revenue is high, and revenue is extremely high. Your studio generates billions annually across theatrical releases, streaming agreements, catalog licensing, international sales, branded partnerships, and merchandise. One successful year can produce margins larger than companies outside entertainment generate in a decade. But high revenue creates a trap. Because now your operating scale requires constant performance. 1 weak quarter becomes investor concern. 2 weak quarters becomes media speculation. 3 weak quarters becomes leadership pressure. Your lifestyle adjusts to that scale too. Private travel, executive properties, staff, assistants, memberships, security, obligations, expectations. None of it feels excessive while revenue remains strong. That is how dependency hides itself. It disguises itself as success while slowly removing your ability to step away. And by the time you fully recognize it, leaving no longer feels like freedom, it feels like collapse. Pressure in Hollywood rarely arrives all at once. It builds quietly through numbers, expectations, headlines, and silence. At your level, nobody raises their voice in meetings. Nobody needs to. Pressure appears through reports placed on the table before you sit down. Weekend numbers lower than forecast. Audience retention dropping on a flagship streaming release. International pre-sales weakening in key territories. Negative press around a lead actor. Rising production costs. Delayed schedules. Marketing overruns. Legal exposure. Investor calls scheduled earlier than usual. The language stays professional, but the meaning becomes obvious. Performance is slipping. And when performance slips inside Hollywood, attention turns upward, toward you. 1 film underperforms and it's considered timing. 2 underperform and analysts start asking questions. 3 in a row and trade publications begin publishing stories about leadership instability. Suddenly Variety, Deadline, and every entertainment reporter in Los Angeles has an anonymous source inside your company explaining what might be going wrong. Most of those sources work for you. That's when the pressure changes form. It stops being financial and becomes political. A director wants final cut, but marketing disagrees. A major actor demands back-end compensation after a stronger-than-expected opening weekend. Streaming executives want franchise spin-offs because subscriber numbers justify expansion. Investors want fewer risks and more sequels. Creative teams want originality. The board wants predictability. None of these goals align, yet all of them reach your office. You become the point where impossible expectations meet. Your calendar fills with crisis management disguised as strategy, emergency screenings, budget reviews, legal calls, reputation meetings, damage control around interviews, internal disputes between executives who once appeared aligned. People become more careful around you. Conversations become shorter. Fewer people disagree openly. More disagreements happen after you leave the room. Even success becomes stressful. A billion-dollar film creates pressure to make another. A breakout star becomes contract leverage. A successful franchise becomes something the company refuses to let end. Winning creates expectation. Expectation becomes obligation. And the public never sees this version. They see premieres, flashbulbs, red carpets, and headlines about record-breaking openings. They see glamour. But behind that image is an industrial machine consuming attention, capital, and performance at enormous scale. And the more successful you become inside it, the less room you have to fail. That is the real pressure, not the fear of losing money, the fear that one wrong decision, one bad green light, one public miscalculation could shift billions of dollars, damage reputations, collapse partnerships, and turn the same industry that built your power into the one that removes it. The dangerous part is not when Hollywood turns against you. The dangerous part is when you start believing your own success is permanent. By now, you've approved films that became global hits. Franchises expanded under your leadership, streaming numbers climbed, investors stayed confident, your studio gained market share. Industry publications started describing you as visionary, strategic, untouchable. People begin repeating that language often enough that eventually it becomes difficult not to believe it yourself. That's where misjudgment begins. It doesn't look reckless at first, it looks reasonable. A larger production budget because the previous installment performed well. A new franchise launch because audience demand appears strong. A long-term exclusive contract with talent because they're currently at peak value. A risky acquisition because owning more content feels safer than licensing it. Every decision has logic behind it. Every spreadsheet supports it. Every advisor explains why it makes sense. And yet the errors still happen because success changes how risk feels. A $40 million mistake inside a billion-dollar business can feel invisible. A failed project gets absorbed into quarterly reporting. A weak release gets blamed on timing. A delayed series gets repositioned as strategic scheduling. The scale protects you from immediate consequences, which makes future mistakes easier to justify. You begin greenlighting projects faster than before. Sequels to films that shouldn't have become franchises. Spin-offs built around market opportunity instead of story. Expensive productions driven by executive confidence rather than audience demand. Big names attached to weak scripts. Massive visual budgets trying to solve structural creative problems that money cannot fix. Hollywood has a habit of using capital to delay difficult decisions. Instead of killing a weak project early, more money gets added. Reshoots, new writers, new directors, marketing expansion, release date changes, additional post-production. The belief is always the same. One more adjustment will fix it. Sometimes it works. Often it doesn't. And because you control the machine, your mistakes scale with it. A bad independent film might lose $5 million. A bad studio-level decision under your leadership can destroy $200 million before release and damage another $300 million in downstream value across licensing, merchandise, and future franchise potential. But financial loss is only part of it. The bigger cost is credibility. Inside Hollywood, people tolerate failure. What they watch closely is judgment. One poor call gets forgiven. Repeated poor judgment becomes a pattern. And once the industry starts questioning your judgment, every decision after that becomes harder to defend, even the correct ones. That is when you realize power doesn't disappear because of one disaster. It weakens because of small miscalculations repeated at scale until the structure underneath them starts shifting. Once instability enters Hollywood, it rarely announces itself directly. It appears first in small signals, numbers that are still acceptable but weaker than expected, meetings that feel slightly more tense, conversations that become shorter, executives who suddenly ask more questions than usual, reports that used to arrive weekly now arrive daily. Nothing looks broken yet, but everyone can feel movement under the floor. Your studio is still profitable. Revenue remains massive. Projects are still being released worldwide. The public sees trailers, premieres, interviews, and opening weekends. To the outside world, everything looks exactly the same, but inside the structure begins shifting. One franchise underperforms internationally. Another delivers strong box office but weak streaming retention. Licensing partners begin negotiating harder. Advertisers become more selective about long-term commitments. A platform renewal comes in lower than forecast. Market analysts start adjusting future growth expectations downward by a few percentage points. Individually, none of these events are catastrophic. Together, they begin creating pressure through the system, and scale amplifies everything. If revenue projections miss by 3% inside a company generating several billion annually, the gap is no longer small. It becomes tens or hundreds of millions. Budgets tighten, development slows, Teams are reduced, projects stay longer in review, expansion plans pause, then people start protecting themselves. Executives who once supported aggressive creative decisions become cautious. Producers begin pitching safer projects, fewer risks, more sequels, more adaptations, more familiar intellectual property. Internal politics grow stronger because uncertainty makes everyone defend their position. Hollywood becomes conservative whenever confidence weakens. That shift reaches you immediately. The same people who once pushed bold ideas now ask whether those ideas are too expensive. Projects they praised 6 months ago suddenly require revisions. Deals once considered strategic are now described as exposure. Your calendar fills with financial reviews instead of creative conversations. Even relationships begin changing tone. Agents become more aggressive in negotiation because they sense vulnerability. Investors ask harder questions. Board members request deeper reporting. Journalists start publishing speculation around leadership changes, restructuring, performance concerns. Anonymous sources begin appearing again. Most of them are inside your building, and that's when you feel instability personally, because your authority still exists, but certainty no longer does. Every decision now carries more resistance, more scrutiny, more consequence. You still control Hollywood from the outside, but internally, the machine has started resisting its own momentum. And once a system built on scale begins losing confidence in itself, it doesn't collapse instantly. It destabilizes in layers, quietly, financially, politically, until everyone inside can feel something changing, even before anyone says it out loud. This is the moment where you understand the difference between leading Hollywood and actually controlling it. For years, those two things felt identical. Your approval could greenlight films, expand franchises, move release dates, reshape talent deals, and redirect hundreds of millions of dollars. That level of authority feels like control. From the outside, it looks absolute, but now the illusion starts breaking, because the machine keeps moving even when your influence weakens. Projects you no longer believe in are already too expensive to stop. Contracts signed years earlier continue activating payments. Marketing campaigns launch automatically because media space was purchased months in advance. Global release schedules remain locked. Licensing commitments still need delivery. Platform agreements still require content volume. Even if you wanted to slow everything down, the system is too large to pause cleanly. Hollywood continues operating while your grip on it starts slipping. Board members become more involved. Investors begin requesting direct updates without filtering through your team. Legal and finance departments gain more authority over creative decisions. Studio presidents begin protecting divisions independently. Conversations start happening before you arrive and continue after you leave. You still sit at the head of the table, but the room feels different now. You notice it in subtle ways first. People stop asking what you want. They start asking what is realistic. Then they start asking what is survivable. That language tells you everything. A major release misses projections by a wide margin. Another expensive project enters post-production over budget. A franchise reboot underperforms with younger audiences. Streaming subscriber growth flattens. Wall Street reacts faster than Hollywood does. Stock pressure creates internal pressure. Internal pressure creates blame, and blame always needs direction. Toward production, toward marketing, toward strategy, toward leadership, toward you. You spend more time defending previous decisions than making new ones. Meetings become explanations, calls become negotiations, public appearances become carefully controlled messaging. You are no longer steering momentum forward. You are managing fallout while trying to preserve confidence, but confidence is difficult to preserve once people sense uncertainty. That is the real loss of control, not losing authority on paper, losing the ability to shape outcomes in real time. You begin realizing Hollywood was never controlled by one person. Not really. It is controlled by timing, capital, public attention, corporate expectations, audience behavior, and perception, all moving at once, often against each other. You were powerful inside that machine, but you were never bigger than the machine itself. And now, for the first time, you can feel it moving without waiting for your decision. Collapse in Hollywood doesn't look dramatic from the outside. There is no single night where the lights shut off across Los Angeles, no final red carpet, no official announcement saying it's over. Collapse arrives through reduction, through removal, through the slow dismantling of scale. Your studio still releases films. Interviews still happen, headlines still appear. The public continues watching trailers and buying tickets without noticing what is changing behind the curtain. But internally, the system is no longer expanding, it is contracting. Projects are cancelled before production. Development deals expire without renewal. Overall output shrinks. Entire departments merge. Executives leave and are not replaced. Marketing budgets tighten. International expansion plans freeze. What used to feel massive now feels defensive. The numbers confirm it. Annual revenue falls. Margins compress. Investor confidence weakens. A franchise once expected to generate multi-film value underdelivers. Licensing partners reduce commitments. Streaming performance softens further. Share price reacts. Analysts revise projections again. Every adjustment triggers another adjustment behind it. Hollywood hides decline well because image is part of the business. But inside the boardroom, everyone sees the same reports. And nobody says your name directly anymore. That's how you know. You are no longer the future strategy. You are becoming part of the explanation for what went wrong. People who once praised your vision now speak about transition, about restructuring, about new direction, about adapting for the future. The language stays polished, but the meaning is clear. The system is preparing to move beyond you. You still have wealth, still influence, still relationships, but authority inside the machine is no longer concentrated in your hands. It is being redistributed quietly across committees, boards, investors, and successor leadership. That's the professional collapse. The personal collapse feels different. Your schedule becomes lighter, calls become less urgent, invitations become selective, meetings happen without you, information reaches you later than before. People who once needed your approval now simply update you after decisions are already made. For years, Hollywood moved when you moved. Now it continues without waiting. And that is harder than financial loss, because the hardest part of power is not earning it. It's discovering how quickly the system adjusts once it no longer needs you at the center of it. The machine survives. The films keep coming. The premieres continue. The cameras still flash. Only now, they're pointed somewhere else. When you step back from Hollywood, the first thing you notice is that nothing actually stops. Studios continue releasing films every Friday. New stars appear. New executives rise. Franchises get rebooted. Award campaigns continue. Streaming platforms keep buying attention. Production lots stay full. The same conversations continue in the same conference rooms with different people sitting in your chair. For years, it felt like the industry moved through your decisions. In reality, it was always moving through something larger than any single person. That becomes clear only after you're no longer at the center of it. You still have money. More than enough. Your name still carries weight in the industry. People still recognize what you built. Projects you approved are still being watched around the world. Characters, films, and franchises that pass through your hands continue generating revenue long after you leave the daily system behind. In measurable terms, your career remains a success. But success looks different once the pace disappears. Without constant calls, the structure feels quieter. Without weekend numbers, opening reports, and emergency meetings, time stretches again. You notice how much of your life was previously measured in release calendars, quarterly expectations, and production deadlines. For years, your attention belonged to audiences you would never meet and markets you could never fully predict. Now there is distance, and distance creates clarity. You start understanding that Hollywood was never only about storytelling. It was a global financial machine disguised as storytelling. A system built from capital, intellectual property, marketing psychology, celebrity economics, licensing structures, and public attention. Creativity existed inside it, but creativity alone never controlled it. Scale controlled it. Distribution controlled it. Timing controlled it. Access controlled it, and for a period of time, you controlled access. That was your power. But power inside a system is temporary because systems are designed to survive leadership changes. They replace faces while protecting structure. That is the part nobody explains when you first arrive. People think Hollywood is ruled by stars, or directors, or studio heads. But Hollywood is ruled by momentum, by whoever can hold together financing, audience demand, reputation, and distribution long enough to keep the machine expanding. You did that. until eventually the machine no longer required you specifically to continue, and that becomes the final lesson. Controlling Hollywood was never really about controlling movies. It was about controlling flow. Money flowing through studios, influence flowing through relationships, attention flowing through culture, and expectation flowing through millions of people watching screens around the world. For a while, that flow ran through you. Then it moved on, and Hollywood kept going, exactly as it always does.